government reassures Nigerians and international community of its determination to secure the release of children and others in Boko Haram captivity.
Nigeria's land border closure. ECOWAS sets up high-powered committee on the best way forward.
The third edition of Nigeria International Petroleum Summit underway in Abuja.
It's a very, very impressive, very well-attended event.
It's been progressively improving in terms of participants.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss the delisting of 74 political parties, plus silencing the guns.
Precisely on Thursday last week, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, announced the status of the 91 political parties in Nigeria that participate in the 2019 general elections and the subsequent one-named Booth Party, BP, registered by court order after the 2019 general elections, bringing the number to 92, Kingsley.
That's right. Now, the INEC's function, of course, was sequel to its assessment of the 92 political parties and their performance after the general and court-ordered elections aligned with the Electoral Management Body's mandate.
Now, the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, while addressing journalists on their findings, said 74 political parties did meet the requirements to continue to exist as a political party, as provided in Section 225, subsection A of the 1999 Constitution as amended, and consequently delisted them.
All right, Juma, that should be that the 74 political parties did not meet the requirements.
Yes.
And that, of course, included their failure to win at least 25% of the votes cast in one state of the Federation in the presidential election, or 25% of the votes cast in one local government area of a state in the governorship election.
And other requirement breached by the deregistered parties is their failure to win at least one ward in the chairmanship election, one seat in the national or state assembly election, or one seat in a councillorship election.
Now, this development has generated mixed reactions from a cross-section of Nigerians, as of course relates to the provision of political space for Nigerians to actively participate in democracy.
But Kingsley, you know, this is not the first time INEC is delisting political parties. You may recall that similar incident happened in which the Commission deregistered 39 political parties between 2011 and 2013, in line with the provision of the Electoral Act 2010.
You're right, Jumai, but how often does the electoral umpire carry out this, if you like, shall we say, house cleaning of political parties in terms of their continuing to satisfy the Electoral Act and constitutional requirements? And how does this affect the participation of citizens through the instrumentality of the various political parties? And why deregistering at this point when it has been argued some parties are already preparing for the Ondo and Edo State governorship elections later on this year? Now, can they deregister the political parties seek re-registration? These are some of the issues we intend to raise with our guests as we'll discuss the deregistration of 74 political parties. My name is Kingsley Osadola, and I welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria, another windy and foggy day here in Nigeria's capital territory.
Yeah, it's not good weather, actually. It's like the cold is coming back. And I'm Jumo Yusuf. Thanking you so much for joining us on the program, coming to you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA. We are live in Abuja.
All right, we have our second topic later for discussion, of course, and that will be silencing the guns, borrowing heavily from the theme of the 33rd AU Summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, plus our regular complimentary segments, including newspaper review, business, and others. In the meantime, let's take the highlights of the morning news, and here is our colleague, Ifeoma Ojinta. Good morning, Ifeoma.
Good morning, Kingsley and Jummai. Good morning, Nigeria, and here is the morning news. The federal government is reassuring Nigerians and the international community that it will neither abdicate its responsibility nor relent until all the children and others in captivity are freed from the shackles of Boko Haram and be reunited with their families. President Buhari renewed the pledge at a high-level breakfast dialogue on the plight of children in armed conflicts held on the margins of the African Union Summit in Ethiopia.
We will not relent until every child, boy or girl, every Nigerian adult in the custody of Boko Haram is freed. Nigeria is committed to the protection of children in armed conflict zones.
In the meantime, a high-powered committee headed by President Christian Kabore of Burkina Faso has been set up to critically examine issues surrounding the closure of Nigeria's land borders and make recommendations on the best way forward. The heads of state and government of the Economic Community of West African States took the decision after an extraordinary meeting in Addis Ababa on the margins of the African Union Summit.
Has appointed one of the presidents to go and undertake a study and discuss with all the protagonists, all the states concerned and actors concerned, and then come back as quickly as possible with a report, and which will then be studied, and then actions hopefully will be taken as a result of that.
President Muhammadu Buhari condemns what he described as murderous and cowardly attack on innocent passengers by the Boko Haram terrorists near Maiduguri, Borno State. The president commiserates with family of victims of the attack, assuring them that his leadership will continually frustrate the devilish operations of Boko Haram and bring it to an end. He stated the commitment of the administration to protect the lives of Nigerians. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has inaugurated a 12-man Nasarawa State Enabling Business Environment Council headed by Governor of the state, Abdullahi Sule. The inauguration took place simultaneously with the 26th edition of the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Clinic held in the state.
The work of creating an enabling business environment cannot be done without the states. The states do the very best when they also set up their own enabling business environment councils. The president is determined to create a Nigeria in which small business owners are nurtured and encouraged to thrive and prosper.
Key players say the third edition of the Nigeria International Petroleum Summit, also known as African Petroleum Technology and Business Conference taking place in Abuja, will raise the bar in African oil and gas sector with the theme Widening the Integration Circle, Technology, Knowledge, Sustainability and Partnership. The clamor for cleaner energy to practically transform the sector was re-echoed.
Nigeria, as a major oil-producing nation, remains ready and accessible for legitimate investments from all interested countries, individuals, and partners.
The diversification policy of the federal government and the target of lifting 100 million people out of poverty would be achievable with the Buhari-led administration's drive to fully harness the potentials in the country's water sector. Minister of Water Resources Suleiman Adamu said this during inspection of water projects in Katsina and Jigawa states.
Most of these dams are 20, 30 years old, but there has been no facility like this for them. So there is a huge benefit for the communities. Farmers will get back their lands. They don't have to wait till rainy season. They can farm all year round. If you are going to do around this place, you can cultivate rice 3 to 4 times. So you can imagine what that means to the economy.
A partnership is being developed between Ebonyi State and the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA. The Commissioner for Information and State Orientation, Uchenna Oji, said this when he paid a courtesy visit on the Director General of NTA, Malam Yakubu Ibn Mohammed, to convey the state's appreciation.
I do know that before 2015 that Ebonyi was one of the states that were all the time here. But today, because of you, your singular gesture. We are heard all over the place in Nigeria, across Africa.
I would like to assure you, Honorable Commissioner, I would like to assure you, His Excellency, through you, that we in NTA will always be partners in progress with any institution, any state government, that seeks to carry this country to the next level.
And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Jumai after this break.
20 years of travel and counting. 20 years of promoting tourism in Africa and diaspora. Over 3 million kilometers traveled. Over 30 African countries visited. Explored the diaspora in 4 continents. Connected over 100,000 happy tourists to Africa. Reached over 50 million homes. Igniting smiles across Africa and beyond. As Goge Africa turns 20, we thank you and invite you to join us in the quest for 20 must-visit destinations in partnerships with the largest TV network in Africa, the NTA, Ministry of Information and Culture, Ministry of Transportation, Studio 24, Delta Airline, Toll Brokers International. You too can still be a partner. Call the numbers on your screen or info@gogeafrica.tv. Goge Africa, celebrating 2 decades of heritage, travel and tourism.
Not so fast. Look, I'm tired. I want to check out of this country for greener pastures.
Just calm down for a moment. Please sit down.
Do you have a job where you're going to?
No, but someone is arranging, Listen, Alinko. Checking out of this country without proper planning means one thing. Unimaginable begin.
I've been in the diaspora, but legitimately doing great things at home and abroad. As I've been saying, without the proper footing abroad, the risk is not worth it.
Listen, Alinko, it's better to be home than be trapped abroad or even end up in prison.
Introducing the new and tasty Peak Yogurt, the nourishment to be you, do you, and go for you. Peak Yogurt comes in orange, strawberry, and plain sweetened flavour. All available in nearby stores. Go for you, must go reach my peak.
Kunu down, make you no worry yourself. Why you want to carry wahala for your head? No be only you get matter for your mind. No. Forget your worries, don't on the door yourself. My brother, free your mind. Enjoyment, don't be crying. Trust the lead to live your life and be free.
Free your mind with Airtel Smart Talk and enjoy calls to all networks at a flat rate of 11 kobo per second. 7 naira fee on the first call of the day applies. Dial *315# to join.
Trust the lead to live your life, free your mind.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
This year, the weather conditions Harmattan in Nigeria is harsh, with temperature dropping very low in some parts of the country. Many underprivileged children are exposed to these harsh weather conditions, putting them at risk to all sorts of respiratory infections with devastating consequences. We request well-meaning Nigerians to kindly donate warm clothing, blankets, beverages, soap, moisturizers, and other essential items for the benefit of these children. Get involved to support displaced and underprivileged children exposed to these harsh weather conditions. Powered by Aisha Buhari Foundation.
Thanks for joining us. The national economy has continued to undergo different transformation aimed at encouraging growth, investing in people, and arriving at a vantage position in global competitiveness. Details for Kulo Mohammed on Business News.
Welcome. Good to have you along. On the trail of a blueprint for a sustainable future, Nigeria's economy has undergone various imperatives by policymakers and stakeholders, from social security investment and inclusion via snippets of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, designed as a medium-term, all-round developmental initiative focused on restoring growth, investing in people, and building a globally competitive economy.
I think first is to commend the ERGP program. I think it's winding down. Okay, and I think there's a new 3-year policy that the government wants to evolve. Government is a continuum, okay, and every aspect of government growth. The whole idea of government is to be able to grow your economy, secure the citizens, okay, and probably like this country, this particular administration is focused on, fight corruption. And if you're going to be measuring, you'll be measuring against those 3 indices. And this is where your policies are also measured.
And from the floor of the Nigeria Stock Exchange, activities on the open day of trading this week returned negative sentiments. Let's now let you see where market indices were placed for Monday. My name is Kulo Mohammed. Glad to have you along. Beauty again soon.
Many thanks, Kulo Mohammed, for the business package. Next, newspaper review.
Our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Chobi, is in the studio. Good morning, Bayo.
Thank you, Juma. Good morning.
What's with the weather?
Yes, it's so hazy. I almost could not see my nose. It's so, visibility is so poor.
Yeah.
It means that our competitors, if you are driving on the highway, you have to be very, very careful.
Very careful.
It's windy and it's chilly.
Yes.
Yeah, it's back. Okay, let's take a look at the Blueprint newspaper. Blueprint is our first paper. There's an earpiece there beside the nameplate. It says stock market loses 154 billion naira. Details on page 34. Below that, federal government inaugurates committee on 40-year-old Mambila power project. That's page 33. Malabu Oil, Adoke granted bail. And above that, below the nameplate as well, Southwest governors sign Amotekun bill February 14th. Fayemi receives draft copy. This story comes with a kicker. Zulum, 30 lives were lost in fresh Maiduguri attack. With 4 riders there, it says, I'm being pushed to the wall to say the truth. No, 10 people were killed. That's according to the military. We'll rescue all abducted children and others, according to President Buhari. And 2 suspected kidnappers mobbed in Ondo. You can see the composite photographs there from Maiduguri. It says Governor Zulum in the middle addressing the people during his condolence visit, and some of the vehicles and other valuables that were destroyed during the attack by Boko Haram elements. Oil Summit. Your investments are safe. Federal government assures foreign investors. That's page 5. Why we submitted 2014 and 2016 TED fund accounts late. That's according to the Executive Secretary, Bogoro. SON, Standards Organization of Nigeria, closes steel firm over infractions. Oyo suspends 13 head teachers and 2 others over illegal fees. In 2023, Biafra Group dismisses Igbo presidency. Page 7.
Yes, and from the leadership newspaper, we have just below the masthead, still talking on the economy. Foreign domestic investors trade 1.9 trillion shares. That's coming from the foreign and domestic investors on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And alleged fraud, court grants Adoke bail. You find that story on page 10. We will free all abducted Nigerians from Boko Haram captivity. That's coming from President Muhammadu Buhari, which Riders says war against children must stop in Africa. Army rescues 3 students from insurgents as Nigerian Air Force bombs terrorist leaders in Borno. And just beside the picture story there, House leadership PDP reps set for showdown over Chinda and others as APC reconstitutes National Reconciliation Committee. And the picture story there, you see President Muhammadu Buhari delivering his keynote address during the event on stopping the war on children at the ongoing AU summit in Addis Ababa yesterday. Coronavirus death toll rises to 908. World Health Organization calls for caution. That story is on page 37. And at the bottom plate of the leadership newspaper, Southwest governors to sign Amotekun bill February 14th. You find that story on page 10. Navy relocates command drafting office to Kogi. That's on page 13. Oyo suspends 13 head teachers, 2 orders over misconduct. That story is on page 35. Senator Ignatius Longjan dies at 75. You find that story on page 11. Bye.
Well, let's start with the sad story that happened at Auno. Auno is a village on the outskirts of Maiduguri along the 132-kilometer Damaturu to Maiduguri road. Travelers who were on that highway got there late, and at 5 p.m. the military always closes their checkpoint, and the commuters have no choice but to spend the night at Auno. Apparently, all those vehicles that were traveling had converged at that village at Auno. Around 9:50 p.m., the Sergeant Boko Haram attacked, setting 18 vehicles comprising of trailers, buses, and cars ablaze. There are claims by villagers that about 30 persons were killed. In fact, their bodies burned and charred on the highway. The theater commander has confirmed that 10 persons were killed. However, the villagers at Auno told Governor Babagana Zulum, who visited in the morning, that on Monday that the women and children were packed into 3 buses and also taken away. The governor has advised that the checkpoint should be moved away from Auno village. The theater commander, Major General Olusegun Adeni, says that the road close will now be moved forward to 4 p.m. And he also frowned at drivers and vehicles parking, having about 200 vehicles parking on the highway. Apparently, they become easy soft target for the insurgents. He also lamented about the fact that the closure now is 4 p.m. and the intention is to protect commuters and travelers from the attack of insurgents. And I see an irony in that. The intention of the military for this checkpoint is to close the gate at 5 p.m. so that they will stop travelers who could possibly convey insurgents into Maiduguri city. Sadly, the people will be forced to spend the night at the villages close to the checkpoint, apparently becoming easy and soft targets for insurgents who are looking for people, defenseless people, to capture. So I think something has to be done about looking at that strategy. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has condoled the families of those who lost persons and the people of Borno State. The president, while speaking in Addis Ababa, has said that the cowardly attack on the innocent passengers is regrettable, and he has assured that his administration will continue to frustrate and demean Boko Haram insurgents until all the activities are brought to an end. He condoled the government and people of Borno State and warned that the terrorists are clearly on the back foot, and that is why they are resorting to soft targets, and certainly their days are numbered. Also, at the high-level breakfast dialogue on Addis Ababa, President Muhammadu Buhari was speaking to a conference that has a theme of Stop the Killing of Children Affected by Armed Conflicts, Divided of Silence. President Muhammad will renew his pledge that all those who are being kidnapped, boys, girls, and every adult in the custody of the terrorist insurgent Boko Haram will be released. He also added that he declared that we will not relent until every child, boy, girl, or girl, every Nigerian adult in the custody of Boko Haram is freed, while commending the multinational joint task force for their initiatives and the partners who have supported the reinstating of children and rehabilitating them. He called on African countries to be partners in the work against preventing children from being exposed to danger in conflict zones. He recommended, he identified 6 critical violations: killing and maiming of children. Also, he talked about recruitment and use of children as soldiers. And the third he identified is sexual violence against children. And the fourth was the abduction of children, while attack against schools and hospitals was the fifth that was identified. The sixth is the denial of humanitarian access to children. These 6 items, he said, should be a matter of concern for all African countries, and particularly all the partners. The ceremony was sponsored by Nigeria, Uganda, Norway, and the EU, as well as the Save the Children.
Quite a sad development there. You know, Borno State is a mourning, actually.
The last time Borno was in the news, it was when, again, the issue of show your national identity card came up, and there was allegation of extortion. Yes. The governor was very active, and he went there to challenge that. This time around, he has also gone there, and he had a difficult task trying to calm the citizens there, because they were very, very, very alarmed and very worried. They felt completely unsafe from the insurgents.
In as much as they're going to, you know, shift the closing from 5 p.m. to 4 p.m., I still think they need to educate the drivers themselves. Once it's 3:30, if you're in Damaturu, you stop. I hope you understand. Or make sure you leave early and arrive Maiduguri before 4 o'clock. But this is such a sad development that I am speechless, actually. I've not been able to say anything. One of my friends' sister was on our platform, said that one of their niece was in a car too there, and one of the Boko Haram terrorists came, collected her bag, her phones and everything, and told her to run. So she ran with the bullets following her to a house where she hid herself. They entered the house, they couldn't see her. But part 2 or 3 of mass communication was burned to death. A lot of people were killed in their cars, and
it was a sad to see on the social media how people were running on the road for dear life.
On the road for dear. And you know, Auno is just 5 kilometers to the airport. 5 kilometers to the Maiduguri airport. That is quite a dangerous situation we're seeing there. Well, still talking about security, we'll now go to the editorial from the Nigerian pilot, and it's talking about boosting national security via modern technology. I'm just going to read a little from it. It is shameful that in the 21st century, Nigeria, a country that prides itself as a giant of Africa, takes the back seat in the best model CCTV cameras of providing security and safety for its citizens. And when it eventually decided to start using Abuja as a model, it was sabotaged. All the persons and corporate entities involved in the scam should be investigated and made to account for their roles.
Yes, the editorial is happening on the usage of closed-circuit television around cities, around metro lines and commuting points as a means of tracking criminals. And it is not far-fetched. Most criminal activities in urban cities around the world, especially in Europe and other parts of the world, have been tracked. The criminals have been tracked through the closed-circuit television. The London bombers, for instance, were all tracked through the closed-circuit television. And the editorial harps on the fact that Seoul, the capital of South Korea, is the most, has the highest number of closed-circuit television, 1,032,879 closed-circuit television. The second is New Delhi, that has 4,388. Washington, D.C. has about 36,000, and these are in schools and metros. The editorial is referring to the attempt in Nigeria to use Abuja as a model, where you had closed-circuit television mounted with solar panels, but they never seem to have worked for any day. In fact, others who have information about it say that those closed-circuit cameras were analog. They were not digital. They are not ultra-modern, but they have never apparently been functional. And that is why the editorial is happening on the ground that those behind it should be brought to book to account for what they have done. And more initiatives should be put in place to use closed-circuit television to help, especially in our urban areas, Abuja, Lagos, Port Harcourt, and mostly our state capital.
Really needs it, yes.
All state
well, Lagos had planned at some time to install CCTVs, but I doubt if that project has taken off. I mean, Lagos, of course, is a megalopolis, and therefore, will benefit tremendously from the installation of CCTVs, in most locations. But even the Abuja that was supposed to be a pilot, as it were, for other states, the fact that the CCTV system that was installed in Abuja about 10 years ago failed doesn't mean that Abuja cannot have CCTV. We have seen over the years how those CCTVs installed were damaged, by reckless drivers. And apparently nothing happens to those drivers. A driver runs into the public infrastructure, the next thing he manages to pull his car away, or he gets a towing van and then he goes. And he doesn't fix that particular infrastructure. That's what the law says. He's supposed to, first of all, the police will arrest him in the first instance, contravene and then impound his vehicle. And then he will fix that particular infrastructure. So if you look at the CCTVs that were installed in Abuja, they've been virtually vandalized. Vandals have taken whatever they want to take from them. Vehicles are running to them. Is that the way CCTVs are supposed to be? How many years does it take to install CCTVs or make them functional? It was as if, this thing was done, it failed, so let those who did it at that time, let them account for it. Until they account for it, we will fold our arms. That's not the way things should work. Yes, those what went wrong before should be thoroughly investigated, and persons found culpable should face the law, face the music. But then you still have a responsibility to better secure the state, to better secure the territory, and better secure the environment. And that is not happening.
Especially business owners in Abuja. Last time there were kidnappings in malls and all that. If there were CCTV cameras, I'm sure they would have seen how these people were kidnapped and taken away.
I think it's not too late in the day. All they need to do is to use the infrastructure on the ground, identify what the problems are, and see how they can be rectified. If not, it has been an investment that has gone down the drain.
We have millions of high-tech graduates just hanging out there looking for something to do. I think with an introduction of the CCTV, it will give them job to do and put food on their table. I think
that's one. We should also not forget that following the incursion of Boko Haram into Abuja itself, 2011 in particular onwards, malls, plazas, and other public places were exhorted by the security agencies to install CCTVs. I mean, remember what happened at Banex Plaza and elsewhere? Install CCTVs. We should ask ourselves, those CCTVs that were installed at that time, are they still working? I mean, the fact that there has been a pushback of Boko Haram outside of Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, and to the fringes of Borno and Yobe, doesn't mean that you cannot make do with CCTVs in the environment. It can help you, apprehend car thefts, and other sundry criminal activities. I mean, suppose a loose cannon just walks into a shopping mall and decides to commit all kinds of offenses. It would be some difficulty for passers-by or other witnesses to correctly and properly identify the individual. So are those CCTVs working?
Yes, working CCTV is very, very essential. You remember of our bank robbery?
Absolutely.
The CCTV helped the security in identifying some of the criminals that were involved in it.
Okay, Bayo, I mean, just before we'll let you go, there was an incident, because I just thought about it a while ago. There was an incident over the weekend. Apparently, a British Airways flight from Abuja to London Heathrow ran into a storm. There was a storm over northern Europe. It disrupted transportation, and of course, the pilot had some difficulty in landing at first on account of the storm, but then succeeded in London, at London Heathrow. I just want to draw attention to the way that has been reported. And, of course, the stories that we have also seen in the social media pertaining that particular incident. They've been saying that, British Airways flight struggles to land at London Heathrow. Are you with me? Struggles to land. You can be sure that if that incident took place in Nigeria, the headlines will be, I don't know how many passengers or crew were on board, but let us assume there were 200. The headlines you will be seeing would be 200 passengers and all that
narrowly escaped
death.
Narrowly escaped death.
Cheat death. Sometimes as if we caught these things. Cheat death. Even when aircraft are on the tarmac and you have an incident of the wings brushing, they're on the tarmac, all the wheels are on ground. The headline you will see will be so and so number of passengers cheat death at. I mean, that is the kind of thing that you ask yourself.
It's just sheer unbridled sensation.
Absolutely.
Sensational reportage.
Bye, Atobi. Thanks a lot for being around. See you tomorrow. Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria, still on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we got ahead with our 2 items for discussion this morning.
Love will be able to unite, irrespective of tribe, religion, and culture. So we keep preaching on love. That is the only binding force. Let us love ourselves, irrespective of where the person comes from.
You are about to witness the commencement of the most stimulating and compelling contest on television. This contest is only for the strong, the intelligent, and the talented. Get ready for the Unity Challenge reality TV show. Coming soon.
Sports coverage and reporting require special skills which can only be acquired through training and experience. NTA TV College JOS invites sports reporters, administrators, commentators in the private and public sector to a special 2-week capacity building course on sports coverage and reporting skills in broadcasting. The course will equip participants with contemporary reporting skills for local and international sports and also expose participants to modern trends in sports commentaries, scripting, shooting, directing, and much more. Take advantage of the course to develop your skills and capacities in sports coverage and reporting. Date 17th to 28th February 2020. Course fee 80,000 Naira only, accommodation inclusive. Running concurrently is a special 4-week intensive course on record management and registry functions. Participants will be tutored on modern techniques of record keeping and registry management. Date 17th February to 13th March 2020. Course fee 100,000 Naira only. Accommodation inclusive. Venue of both courses is the serene and secure environment of NTA TV College near Old Government House, Rayfield, Jos, Plateau State. For more inquiries, please call 0803-314-4383 or 0806-980-9807. NTA TV College Jos, training you to be the best you want to be.
My name is Yemi Adetunji, the COO downstream of NNPC. Ever since the closure of the borders, we have seen a marked reduction, about 10%, in terms of the evacuation of what you call loadouts of PMS, which equates to about 6 million liters per day, essentially because of the border closure, because of certain aspects we've also done as NNPC, working with our sister organizations, sister agencies, Nigerian Customs, DPR, Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources, and other agencies, and also what we call Operation White, which is an intervention we have put in place to trace and track every molecule of petroleum products as they arrive in country through the vessels, as they move through the depots, and as they are evacuated with trucks out of the depots.
The lack of electricity has really brought up multi-dimensional challenges of human existence. People are really suffering. They are really suffering.
Whatever we want to do, we are just managing ourselves.
We are praying to have something.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Good Morning Nigeria and we are live in Abuja. The 33rd Ordinary Session of the African Union Heads of State and Government began on Sunday in Addis Ababa with a particular focus on silencing the guns. It is aimed at creating a conducive atmosphere for social-economic development of the continent. Adamu Sambo tells us more.
In his address, which centered on the state of peace and security in Africa, President Muhammadu Buhari told the African leaders that the future of the continent, where all guns are silenced and peace consolidated for sustainable development, should be their collective resolve.
The time has come for a new strategic rethinking by the Union to effectively prevent, manage and resolve conflicts in the face of new circumstances. Nigeria welcomes the collaborative leadership of the African Union with the regional economic communities in resolving conflicts on our continent.
The African Union, he said, must not only aim for African-owned and led solutions in conflict situations for actionable response, but also be bolder to spearhead conflict prevention, mediation, and preventive diplomacy through enhanced synergy in the Peace and Security Council. The president said efforts must continue to be intensified towards mitigating the dreadful acts of terrorism in Libya, the Sahel, Lake Chad Basin, and parts of the Horn of Africa so that the future of the continent can be effectively secured.
We are very much encouraged by the decision of AU Peace and Security Council to adopt the regional stabilization strategy for the Lake Chad Basin and the renewal of the mandates of the multinational joint task force and the G5 Sahel joint force. We are hopeful that the Inter-Water Basin Transfer Initiative for the recharging of Lake Chad will address some of the drivers of terrorism.
President Buhari said Nigeria is proud to continue to serve as a strong contributor to peace efforts in West Africa, describing the renewed vigor by ECOWAS to mobilize its own resources towards combating terrorism as commendable.
Terrorism and violent extremism continue to cause mayhem and untold crisis on our continent. The sustained engagement of the Union is necessary for a peaceful and secure Africa envisaged in Agenda 2063.
While calling for full implementation of the AU Peace Fund, President Buhari, however, said Nigeria will fervently contest attempts to make Africa subsidize the primary responsibility of the United Nations as clearly provided in its charter.
Many thanks, Adamu Sambo, for that backgrounder. We have with us three guests who are familiar guests on Good Morning Nigeria. First, we'd like to welcome DCP, that's Deputy Commissioner of Police, Frank Umba, who is Force Public Relations Officer. DCP Frank Umba, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you, and good morning, Nigerians.
Also here with us in the studios is Dr. Mukhtar Imam. He's at the Department of International Relations and Diplomacy at Base University, also in Abuja. Doc, pleasure to have you around.
Thank you for having me.
And last but not the least, another familiar face, a security risk management expert, Dr. Kabir Adamu. Doc, pleasure to have you around on Good Morning Nigeria. Okay, let's begin with DCP Frank Umba. At the strategic level, what is your reaction to the choice of the theme, silencing the guns, for the 33rd Ordinary Session of the AU Heads of State Summit in Addis Ababa, silencing the guns? We know that the guns are booming all over the continent, but strategically, what does that imply?
For me, I think the time couldn't be, it couldn't be at a better time than now. Perhaps we even woke up a bit late, but it's better late than never. And so I can't but agree with the AU absolutely that it is time for us to actually absolutely silence the guns. And the good thing here is when you look at the program and the concept of silencing the guns, they are talking of ending conflicts in Africa. They are talking of putting an end to the various wars, genocide, the use of violence as a means for resolving conflicts. But it goes even beyond that. Silence the Gun is a program that is all-encompassing. It talks about promoting the Sustainable Development Goals. It talks about promoting and respecting human rights. It talks about those non-kinetic approaches that you can actually use to tackle issues that precipitate or exacerbate crimes, such as climate change, such as financial or economic exclusion, such as illiteracy, such as poverty, such as deliberate abuse of the right of a section of the people, whether they are rights of women, whether they are rights of ethnic nationality. So if indeed African Union can actually go for the jugular and aggressively seek the implementation of measures that will go at the root of the causes of terrorism, the roots of the causes of violence, human trafficking, drug trafficking, arms trading, and particularly illicit arms dealing and the rest of them, then it will be easier, much more easier for those of us who are in the core law enforcement agents. Because I tell people, oftentimes police agencies, not just in Nigeria, but the world over, are caught up in a certain cyclical web of trying to perpetually deal with crime, but they don't have the wherewithal to deal with the causes of crime. And so as long as you don't manage the causes of crime and cut down the pool from which terrorists recruit, organized criminals recruit, then as long we will continue to arrest. Some of them might even die in encounters, some might be jailed, but they will continue to come up because there is a very large pool from where they are being recruited.
In a press statement recently, you said that this insurgency or criminality in Nigeria continues to grow because some Nigerians support them by doing business with them. How far have you gone in your investigation? Has there been any arrests so far?
That statement is absolutely true, is factual, and even the three suspects that were picked up recently with direct link with the attack of the Emir of Potiskum, directly with their activities of Ansaruddin terror group and so many other violent crimes that have taken place in the North Central and Northwestern axis. We have established direct linkage with some businessmen, and we are keeping that close to our chest because we needed to do a much more elaborate work on it. But indeed, we have discovered that there are a group of business people you can call the conflict entrepreneurs. They actually thrive when there are weak governments, when there are weak systems. So they deliberately sponsor some of these activities. They are the ones that provide arms, illicit arms for them, connect them, deal with the middlemen, ensure that the arms they paid for eventually get to the criminal groups. They are the ones that supply them with drugs, particularly those illicit drugs that give them the kind of Dutch courage you see them exhibiting, those fatalistic courage you see them display during operations. They are the ones that even provide essential things that help them to sustain themselves.
Like what?
Like food, like drinks. Even in this last operation, you'll be shocked that we saw crates of alcohol Of course, those are not the kind of thing you want to recover. You don't even have the time. But we saw those things. So you'll be surprised that these are people who are preaching ostensibly against infraction of divine laws, while they are actually thriving and deeply enmeshed in the acts themselves.
All right, thank you very much. This has been Franco. But let's bring in now Kabir. Kabir, I still want to return to the strategic question that the AU itself has now picked up. This has been Franco says that, look, it couldn't be more apt, even though belated. And from our own national experience, we have seen the cross-cutting issues relating to our own internal security, and how the linkages are with criminal elements from either the Sahelian region or from the far north, following the collapse of the Libyan regime. East Africa has its own crisis and all of that. What, again, is your own evaluation of this whole approach now by the AU to say, silence the guns? Is this a tall order? Because there's been measured against Agenda 2063. That's 43 years from now. But people have to survive. Countries have to be in existence, and businesses have to grow. Is this strategic approach likely workable?
Yeah, yes. I mean, I'm hugely impressed by the fact that the AU, as a body, as a continental multilateral platform, has seen the need to galvanize its members towards that common direction. And more importantly, it has gone about setting up the structure for achieving that objective. As part of its plan, it would have an amnesty month, quote and unquote, where people who are in possession of these illicit weapons will be asked to hand over the weapons. We've attempted that in Nigeria severally, where the police, as an example, has attempted to mop up small arms and light weapons in circulation. And then we have the presidential committee that, if I'm right, was set up by the Obasanjo administration, which is currently in limbo. I'm a bit concerned regarding our approach to this, because there is an ECOWAS convention that was agreed in 2004. And as of today, about 12 or 13 ECOWAS member states have set up the commission that convention actually encouraged. Nigeria, unfortunately, is yet to set up that convention. And given our status, it's a bit of background. There are about 600 million youths that are currently either unemployed or underemployed or in insecure jobs. Nigeria has about 40 million of those youths, and they are vulnerable to exploitation by the various groups that are involved in one or the other crisis or conflict. So if we, as the biggest country in Africa, as it were, in terms of population, there is this convention that ECOWAS has encouraged, and we're yet to have it. And yet, AU, as a body, is under Agenda 2063, with the objective that perhaps sometimes in September there will be an amnesty month. I think we should have that commission immediately. Set up that commission so that whatever the AU is doing, that commission can lead us. The Arms Proliferation Treaty that almost all the African member countries have signed into, the only way to implement that is through the platform of this commission. So to that extent, in terms of the strategic approach at the continental level, then of course at the regional level, I think the platforms exist. But for the secret to achieving this is at the member states level. The national objective, then the community objective. There needs to be a body that will reach out to the various stakeholders within member states for them to understand the importance of embracing this agenda. And I think the only way to do that is to have such a commission, or perhaps, as some people have preached, to have the Drug and Law Enforcement Agency expanded, and maybe its name changed to have. But my point is that there needs to be platforms in member states. Regional associations have already gone far. Nigeria, the biggest country in West Africa, needs to spearhead that move as well.
Okay, the AU is a symbol of unity for the region, and coming together. This summit, this actual one that is ongoing now, has drawn a lot of attention. The UN scribe is there. The Canadian president was there. Are we seeing a more proactive AU now?
Yes, the Libyan crisis, I think, has brought to fore the need for Africa to take the initiative. If you recall, most of the initiative that has been driven over the Libyan crisis, and I think I want to emphasize the role of the Libyan crisis in terms of the crisis situation in Africa, proliferation of arms, returnee jihadists who are coming from Syria and Iraq going to Libya, and from Libya coming to countries like Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Mali, name them. Now, the countries that have driven that peace initiative, if I'll call it that, the UN was at the forefront with the establishment of the, it was a political, peacekeeping mission, if I'll call it that. Then, of course, Turkey, Russia, and then the EU. Now, unfortunately, all of this, apart from the UN that I've mentioned, have their interests, which in most times is actually not the African interest, because even the removal of Gaddafi, some people have questioned whether it's in the interest of Africa. You removed him and then you left a vacuum. The vacuum is that today the country is in a civil strife. Then you have situations where some countries are supporting one part of the conflict and some other countries are, and they are quote and unquote mediating. How can you mediate when you are an interested party? So the realization has come that the AU as a body should spearhead this type of movement because it's its interest that is being affected, and I think that is what has come to fore at this conference. And I'm also very, very happy with especially the statement by President Buhari where he recognized the role, and that the point has been made by DCP regarding the root causes of the crisis. He mentioned recharging the Lake Chad region. I think there is nothing that will be as significant in creating an impact in especially the Lake Chad region as recharging the Lake Chad itself.
Okay, right. Thanks a lot, Kabir. In fact, I'll come to you subsequently to elaborate further on what Discipline Frankenbach has said with regard to the causative factors that the law enforcement agents will have to now deal with the consequences. Mukhtar Imam, Africa, as it were, is coming to the realization that they have to silence the guns. But apart from the causative factors which have been ticked off, has been internal, as it were, to the continent, we know that there are also external influences. A number of these guns that we are seeing in use are probably not manufactured in Africa. I mean, probably the only country with capability would be South Africa, for instance, and perhaps Egypt to an extent. So there are these conflict merchants who are pouring in these arms and ammunition into our continent, and they are profiting from it. So what kind of collaboration would you like to see, apart from the level of representation that we have seen, for instance, with the UN, the UN Secretary General being available? How might the AU hope to leverage on other regional associations and key influencers around the world that are known, whether openly or covertly, to be profiteers from conflict?
Yes, thank you very much. See, there are basically two rational factors that basically instigate conflict in every society. One of them would be the internal contradiction, which has been talked about, and then you have the external interferences as well. Excuse me. Now, speaking of the external interferences, it's very key. It's very important. It's paramount that we look at that aspect. You see, world over there has been a talk about the need for the disarmament, the denuclearization, and the demilitarization of societies because of the excessive flow of small and light arms in different parts of the world, particularly in Africa. Africa is basically facing the backlash of proliferation of arms around the world. And these arms are basically created by the military-industrial complexes, which Africa has no basis, or rather Africa has no established military-industrial complex. So what we see is that these military-industrial complexes outside of the continent of Africa basically go into the creation of arms. Apparently, this is what they feed from. And then these arms are sent into other parts of the world. We have done researches and have discovered that part of the activities of the military-industrial complexes around the world is to foment trouble where there isn't even the need for trouble. They go to places, sell arms through the black markets, they sell to governments, they foment trouble, and then leave people, the ordinary citizens of these societies, to suffer for this. So basically, the activities of military-industrial complexes, those who own the huge military complexes around the world, there's the need to curtail their activities, whether they be private organizations or establishments. that basically own and run these gun companies, or even government-owned. There's a need for that. I mean, the last statistics showed that there's over 100 million small and light arms that have flown into Africa, particularly into Libya, which basically brought the end of Gaddafi's reign. These arms have found their way through the Sahel into parts of West Africa, and this is what was suffering here. These arms have basically found themselves into the hands of dreaded groups like Boko Haram. So there is the need for a concerted effort. There's the need for a true and honest conversation around the activities of the military-industrial complexes. The African Union as a platform needs to find a way. There should be some mechanisms put in place to be able to checkmate some of the activities of these gun companies. Who are the people who purchase the guns? In whose hands do these guns or these arms or whatever you call them end up? Because there's a need for that. The end users are very, very important. And so when governments go into agreement, whether in open markets or otherwise, to purchase arms, there's the need to know exactly the sources of these arms to be able to deal with precisely those who manufacture the arms. In the event these arms end up in the hands of these terrorist organizations, we've seen cases not just in Africa, in the Middle East as well, where guns and drones and so on and so forth have carried out certain activities of bombing places, and you find that the major players deny. And you ask yourself, where exactly do these things come from? Even though the manufacturers' country names are put on these drones and these equipments, but yet you still hear about consistent denials. So there's the need for African Union as a platform to be able to deal succinctly with this situation by having a deliberate conversation, by having an honest conversation with these military-industrial complexes to be able to curtail the spread of small and light arms. Because we've seen virtually all countries that are signatory to these treaties of non-proliferation of light and small arms. Yet, what you find is that it keeps the proliferation consistently grows, which is basically shouldn't be the case.
Is this a tall order then for the AU? I mean, considering that sometimes matters pertaining to Africa and the rest of the third world often have difficulty in gaining traction. For instance, the return of loot. If you're talking about corruption, the process of corruption stashed wherever they are. Once they get the monies there, everybody is quiet, and then they ask you to go through their legal processes. How can the AU galvanize critical global opinion with regard to what Mukhtar has said, to say, rein in the military-industrial complex and other merchants of conflict?
So on the sidelines of the 33rd session of the EU, the headquarters of CISA was launched. I've forgotten the full meaning of the acronym of CISA, where it's a Committee on Intelligence and Security that currently a Nigerian is actually heading, the DG of NIA. It was launched, and it provides a platform for intelligence fusion among African countries. Now, the importance of that is this: intelligence is the key to solving some of these issues. You need to know the information, everything, dissect the weapon, understand its sources, understand the objective of the person actually selling the weapon. Now, part of the challenge that African countries have faced in the past is this inability to share intelligence. So we're hoping that with the launching of this, CISA headquarters, that there will be permanent representation by all the 50+ African countries at that headquarters, and then of course that would enable the sharing of intelligence. The second component is the use of multilateral and several other international platforms, especially the UN. Diplomacy is the key to this. If you use your diplomatic tools, go out there, bring out the issues, speak your own narrative. Do not allow the world to speak your narrative. You understand what your challenges are. You have a cultural understanding of how these things affect you. There is no platform, multilateral, that the African continent is not represented at. But what we have seen consistently is the inability to sell our story. So if these weapons, small arms and light weapons, which we are not manufacturing, he's spoken about the industrial complex. Yes, they are powerful, but we have numbers. If the continent comes together and speak with one voice, which I'm hoping that this CISA platform will provide, because when you speak, you have to give numbers, you have to give information, you have sometimes to link what you are saying with actually the sources, then the world will listen to you.
Okay, thank you so much. Now coming back to Frank Uba, we've seen Nigeria being chosen as one of the members of the new security of the EU, and it's with countries like Lesotho, Algeria, Kenya, Burundi and Nigeria. Are we looking at possibility of having a regional force, across the continent to come together and fight this thing we call insurgency, which is a cancer that is eating into the very fabric of Nigeria, of the African continent?
Yes, I think there are already regional efforts across the continent, actually, at smaller levels, at smaller scales, dealing with some of those challenges. The multilateral, the multinational joint task force in the Lake Chad axis, for example, the AU peacekeeping operations going on in Somalia, in Sudan, in Mali are also clear examples. But I think what the AU is doing now is a realization of the very dynamic nature of security and conflict challenges in Africa. They've realized that the era where we have inter-nation state conflicts are almost over. The era where you have Rwanda, Burundi fighting war, Ethiopia, Eritrea fighting war, and those kind of wars, most of that era is gone. We have a new security challenge in our hands where terror groups are just all over the place, and these are sometimes an amorphous group, but very, very organized and very strong. And they have also realized the very dispersal nature of these crimes. So you can't sit down in your place and think your country is safe because of the fluidity of the borders and the fact that Africa and the world is becoming almost borderless. So a conflict is going on in Libya. It impacts countries in the Sahel. It impacts countries in Northern Africa, in Central Africa, in West Africa. So it is important that when there are crises going on or conflicts going on in one part of Africa, they need to come up continentally and deal with them. And when you talk about these light weapons, unfortunately, the number of these weapons in the hands of the non-state actors are actually more than the ones in the hands of the state actors. A 2019 study commissioned by AU actually shows that 80% of the light weapons are actually in the hands of civilians or non-state actors. Just 20% of those light weapons are actually in the hands of the government agencies, the military, the police, and other security agencies in Africa. So it gives you that number is quite scary. So if the security agencies just have like 20% of the weapons and they are confronting the non-state actors with 80% of the weapons, then that gives you an idea the kind of challenge we are facing. And that's why the AU is coming up with these approaches that are a bit non-conventional in trying to solve some of these problems. And I also absolutely agree with Dr. Mukhtar on the need for us to rain down on this conflict matchers, as you call them, or conflict entrepreneurs, or those that drive these conflicts because they want to make gain. And the truth about these capitalists is that they don't care about what happens to the world, what happens to Africa, what happens to Nigeria, as long as they're able to take their profit, repatriate their profit to wherever they want to be. But at the core of this is responsible governance. If you look at Rwanda, just a minute, if you look at the story and history of Rwanda, you will see what responsible governance can do in moderating and managing conflict. From an epicenter of genocide a few years ago, Rwanda has become the best example of what responsible governance should be. and they are attracting huge foreign direct investment from all over the world. And the import of that is that Africans or AU leaders, who are incidentally also the political and economic leaders in Africa, must also walk the talk and then ensure that back home in their respective countries, they entrench a culture that promotes justice, equity, responsible governance, economic inclusion, and try to deal with poverty and illiteracy so that they can set the stage properly for silencing the guns.
All right, thanks a lot. This will be Frank about African leaders ready for this challenge. To say, quite aside from getting collaboration from outsiders, take on the challenge of responsible governance, as Frank Mba has itemized. Are we ready?
Well, I think that's more or less a subjective question. It's a thing of perception. The truth is, relatively, we see some eagerness, deep within the subconscious of some of the African leaders. Point to Paul Kagame, for example, who has been in the forefront of the campaign against violence in other parts of the world and so on and so forth, particularly given his experience. So yes, to a significant extent, I think some of the African leaders are beginning to show some level of readiness, some level of commitment to the African continent, to the African people, to the people who have given them the mandate of leadership. Hence, I return back to the theme of the AU summit, which is very apt. Now, I look at that theme from two perspectives. One of them is, say, silence the guns. By silencing the guns, it's more of a military a military approach, more or less trying to say, let's remove the military armaments, that segment of what basically affects society. And the second aspect of it is to say, look, we need to silence the gun by bringing about some quantum of development to the African continent, because these two things are intertwined. There is no development without security. It's not very feasible. So for me, I think what needs to be done is that we need to see a lot more proactiveness from African leaders. It's not about defending people's lives. Security is all-encompassing. Security is about military defense, it's about environmental security, it's about cyber security, it's about economic security. So it is all-encompassing. And so there's the need for African leaders to come together and realize that at this point in our lives, what we need more than ever is not the security of militarization, but the security of basic needs. People need to be carried along. There's the need for enhancing people's living standard. Because so long as people feel deprived and not carried along, so long as people feel that resources are not getting to them adequately, there is always going to be that gap, that divide.
Mukhtar, in fact, gentlemen, sorry, we're getting pressed for time now. This is going to elaborate into another segment that we hope we can take some other time. After two catastrophic world wars, Europe said, no more wars, let's focus. And we saw what the Marshall Plan in part did to help regenerate Europe. And of course, when it then ran into the crisis in the Balkans, we saw the way, the rest of Europe, and of course, backed by the Americans, now said, no, listen, this is part of what we said must never arise again. Is it possible again for Africa to galvanize the kind of support that Europe got after the end of the Second World War in the first instance? Because if the capitalists, if they have their investments on the African continent, they are unlikely to look the other way when merchants of conflict are seeking to destabilize their productive activities that normally will yield them returns.
The irony is that they do have their investments, and yet these things are happening. So what we've seen, Congo as an example, Sudan, Nigeria here, they are more interested in protecting their interests than protecting the national interest. So I don't think we should throw that responsibility to them. Yes, they can have their investments, but let the narrative be ours. I've been looking at the statistics, and I know that there are about, from what the AU has mentioned, 57 countries are already backing, as it were, the silencing the gun Agenda 2063. The UN is backing it. So we have that kind of support. But what is missing is for African leaders to speak as one. We have conflicts that frankly shouldn't be there. A good example is South Sudan. Of course, we've seen the role played by some African leaders. Libya is there. So let's start with that. Speak with one voice. You know, sometimes if we look back at some of our former leaders and the role they've played, a good example is former President Obasanjo, how he's moved around in terms of what some call gunboat diplomacy, running from one end of the continent to the other to manage this kind of conflict. So I think that needs to be done. And I'm happy that as part of the silencing the gun agenda, there are quote-unquote informal conflict resolution mechanisms that will be pursued. Before I end, I want to emphasize the role of women in all of this. We are not doing that enough. Currently, only about 50% of the population, as it were, the African population, is being looked at. The role of women is significant because, think about it, there is no man that does not have a woman, either his mother or his wife. So I think going forward, African leaders, Paul Kagame has done it. So the other 56 too also need to do it. Bring out the women, empower them, give them roles in this, and believe me, the results will be seen.
I like that. Okay, Mr. Frank Muba, we're running out of time. We have to take our tweets, but are we ready for a more proactive stand on securing the African continent?
Well, if our leaders will walk the talk, then we will get there. But as long as we continue to pay lip service to the fundamental factors that are driving crime and violence and terrorism, as long as we allow corruption to take the center stage, as long as we continue with irresponsible governance and like I said earlier, pay lip service to the core functions of protecting lives and property, then we'll continue in this unending cycle of violence and crime.
All right, thanks a lot. Mukhtar, closing thoughts, very briefly.
Well, it has been said, all of it. I think the fundamental thing, as one scholar would say, that the essence of human existence is material. There's a social contract that individuals consciously or unconsciously have gone into with their government, and that governments must be seen to be responsible in protecting the right of citizens. So long as these things are not put in place and the necessary framework and institutions are not strengthened, then we will continue along this path of this vicious circle. So there's the need for a more proactive step by governments, particularly on a continent that is seen as one of the richest in the world. Yeah. We shouldn't be in this position. It's
okay, thank you so much. We had a number of tweets that came in the course of the discussion we're having. Daily Jack Solomon tweets, there is need for the AU and REC RMS through state leaders to continue to mediate and increase preventive diplomacy in violent conflict areas. Also, African regional organizations should continue to promote peace and security on the continent. Nothing more, nothing less.
Festus Akimboyewa, it's good that ECOWAS member countries are mobilizing resources to tackle Boko Haram. While all hands should be on deck to tackle the menace of our insecurity, our leaders should also take care in their use of words.
And Chris Simon tweets, President Muhammadu Buhari should call on the African Union to arise and come to our aid in tackling the security challenges that is befalling the country. Kidnapping, killing, banditry and assassination are increasing every day.
At Adekunle Olayemi, if we want to have at least 70% security assurance in Africa, our leaders must see their positions as one to work for the betterment of Africans, not to enrich themselves and their families.
And Ibrahim Modu Aji says, AU should use its platform and seek for purchase of modern military hardwares and jets from America for all terrorism-troubled African countries. Maybe using AU platform would make some countries reconsider in selling state-of-the-art military hardwares to crush Boko Haram and bandits.
Joseph, that's a Twitter handle. To deal with security challenges, we need intelligence, because no matter the sophisticated weapons we have, you can only succeed by intelligence gathering.
And Michael Omokoji tweets, not until we develop local content to begin to manufacture our own weapons in Africa, all the discussion at EU would end as social razzmatazz. Besides, if there's no arms, ammunition, and other dangerous weapons, would there be war? The whites who produce remain Africa's enemies.
All right, so those are the tweets that we can accommodate in this conversation. We'd like to thank our three guests who have been with us on the program this morning. Dr. Mukhtar Imam from Bayes University, thanks a lot for being around. Dr. Kabir Adamu, our regular guest, thanks also for being here with us.
Thank you.
And Force Public Relations Officer, DCP Frank Uba, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria, still on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll be dealing with the deregistration of 74 political parties. We now have 18 political parties on the cards.
I'm Deputy Comptroller of Customs, Joseph Atta, the spokesman for the joint security exercise. Over a period of time, either through indifference or deliberate non-compliance to the ECOWAS protocol on transit of goods by our neighbors, the Nigerian Customs Service have been raising this issue. MOUs were signed severally. They were broken as soon as they were signed. We've seized over 32,050 kg bags of rice. And that is a huge impact. And then the fact that the coming in of this foreign rice have been completely shut down. We've gone around, we've received testimonies of farmers who, before now, found it difficult to sell one truck on a market day. These people say it now that those who could not sell one can now sell up to 20 trucks.
Can I see your particulars, sir?
Officer, my particulars no dey here.
In that case, you'll have to come with me to the police station.
Officer, which levels? Where I for find you something make you take arrange your weekend.
What? Offense number 1, driving without particulars. Offense number 2, trying to bribe an officer of the law.
I won't harass Nigerians or take bribe. Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Welcome back to Good Morning Nigeria, and to begin our discussion on the second topic for the day, let's take this report put together by Mayor Ogidi.
Invitation for the press briefing was sudden, and there was no written agenda. So, the guessing game about the content of the meeting preoccupied the lips of journalists. Few minutes later, it became a public knowledge.
74 political parties are hereby deregistered.
Out of the 92 political parties, 74 could not escape the sledgehammer of Section 225A of the 1999 Constitution, which empowers INEC to deregister non-performing political parties. And these are the justifications.
1. Breach of any of the requirements for registration as a political party. 2. Failure to win at least 25% of the votes cast in one state of the Federation in a presidential election, or 25% of the votes cast in one local government area of a state in a governorship election.
With this nullification, the list of successful political parties were announced. APC, PDP, SDP, ABGA, and YPP are among the 18 successful ones. However, Boot Party made the list because court ordered its registration after the general elections in 2019, while Action People's Party is enjoying the protection of the law court.
Thank you very much, Mayor Ogidi, there for that background. With us here in the studios now to discuss this issue, let's welcome Victor Ayo Aluko. He's Director of Voter Education at INEC. Mr. Aluko, pleasure to have you around.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Also here with us in the studios is Dr. Abiola Akiode Afolabi, Chairperson, Transition Monitoring Group. Doctor, pleasure to have you around with us.
Thanks for inviting me.
We also have in the studio Dr. Yunus Satanko, National Chairman of the NCP, and also a former IPAC Chairman. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
And we also have our regular, Esther Uzoma, National Coordinator, Proactive Gender Initiative and Election Observer, Co-Convener, Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room. Thank you so much for coming.
Good morning,
It's a pleasure. Happy New Year.
Same, yes.
All right, the year is already old, actually.
Yes, I've not seen her since last year, May.
So if you saw her in November,
yes,
you will say,
come on.
If you saw her in November, you will say Happy New Year.
Yes.
Pretty good. Okay, let's begin with the INEC Director of Voter Education. I mean, we picked up snippets of this from the news and even in our background a while ago as to why the Electoral Management Body decided to remove the 74 political parties from the list of parties recognized legally in the country. Why and why now?
INEC took the action because the Constitution that empowers INEC to register political parties also empowers INEC to deregister political parties. Section 222 of the Constitution empowers INEC to register parties. Section 225A empowers INEC to deregister parties. So we didn't just wake up one day and we didn't just wake up to deregister parties. We looked at the law and implemented the law. Whatever anybody is saying about the action we took, you must judge us based on the provisions of the Constitution. Did we follow the constitutional provisions or did we not follow them? These are the basic facts. Every other thing is secondary.
So why now?
Why now?
Because at the end of the general elections and after the run elections, we carried out an assessment of the performance of the political parties. Now, Section 225 tells us the conditions under which you register political parties. Excuse me. It talks about certain performances in the general elections. Now, it talks about the presidential election. You must not win anything less. It said at least 25% of votes cast in a state. Or, if it's a governorship election, 25% of votes cast in a local government. If it's a chairmanship election, you win a ward, at least a ward. Now, in the legislative elections, you have at least a seat either in the National Assembly, in the state assemblies, or at least a councillorship seat in local government elections. Now, how do you now carry out the assessment? It's based on elections conducted. And you can only do this after general elections, when all the parties are given the opportunity to go into the field and perform. After that, you now assess. It's a simple thing put in place by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which INEC must follow. And that's what we have done. After our assessment, a very empirical assessment, not subjective in any way. We relate to the parties all the time. We know them, they know us. IPAC, we're always talking with them. But when it comes to obey the Constitution, INEC must obey the Constitution, no matter whose ox is God.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Victor Ayo. Coming to a politician, Dr. Yunus Atanko, 74 political parties deregistered. What was your reaction when you heard about it?
Well, let me say this. I was not actually shocked, but I was surprised at the timing because we knew that the INEC was planning to do something like that. Just a follow-up to what he said, follow-up to the Constitution that they use in deregistering the political party. Section 225A, as he mentioned. You can't pick and choose which part of the law to follow. You can only follow the law to the latter completely, and the process must be followed. I like it very well when he mentioned local government election. How many local government elections have we conducted in this Nigeria? How many have we completed? So why now redoing it? And then I heard some of the spokesperson in INEC saying that they use the FCT local government election. And the FCT local government election, according to the Supreme Court judgment within AG, Federal AG and Abia AG, shows that the FCT after election itself is not even part of the Constitution as it were. So, and then we know that INEC have about 100 associations seeking to be registered. 100 waiting. Now, that 100, whether they like it or not, they have to register those 100. So what is the, let me not use the word sense in it, what does it make when you deregister 74 and then you register 100? So these are some of the questions that we are asking. And then INEC must look at it very critically. These political parties, a lot of us have been working hard to win elections. And there's no time in which any of the elections that we've won that those particular seats have been declared vacant so that people can know that those who have won election, at least they stay put where they are. So we need to have considered the issue of electoral reform that will make these parties look at their shortcomings, the area in which their shortcomings are, and then so that we can now improve on it. But we didn't do that, but we are quick in just registering political parties. And we're giving them all kinds of names consistently. And then how do you expect our election, our democracy to survive? It can't.
Esther Ozoma.
Yes.
Well, it's a good thing that INEC is implementing a constitutional provision. There are several of such constitutional provisions. Like you asked, why now? All right. However, we must look at it in the light of the need to groom our democracy to the extent that democracy is about inclusivity. You already have let me tell you, you already have 100 waiting. I can tell you that 1,000 is incubating. You register 74, all right? 1 million will register again. So the problem, you cannot cure that. There's a problem that needs to be cured. That is the cluster, of the voter. You cannot cure that cluster on the ballots by the registration of political parties, apparently. And so democracy is about let everybody register whatever you want to register. But because you are paying a fee of 1 million to be registered, you should also pay a fee to remain a political party. Just like what happens in CAC. If you register a company, you pay your annual dues. If you even use NEPA, you pay some maintenance. So it's not about the registering. If you look at it, I love INEC, but what's the logic of 25%? Because if you look at the margin of win in elections, it's way less than that. What's the logic of 25% win? Is it because it's constitutional? Some people should be heading down the courts. That is how we grow. Access to the ballot should be based on other criteria that INEC should formulate. Fundamental rights of association is granted, but access to the ballot, people should associate on whatever, if you associate. If it's whatever, look, and that is how the people we borrow democracy from, that's how liberal they are. But not everybody comes there, because you must groom people. There has to be, and you only groom. Political parties is a unique grooming ground for political ideology. Do it now. We already know that 74% of the parties belong to one person anyway.
Does it, Tanko, are you the owner of those 74 political parties? Because just say one person.
My party was registered by with our late legal luminary Chief Gani Fawehinmi, who stood firmly and went to court. We went to court. The first instance we defeated INEC. The second time, under my own leadership, we went to court with defeated INEC. Then they came through the back door again to manipulate the constitution so as to continue to do this out. As it is now, we are in court with INEC, and I knew we were in court with them. They never came to court for one day, and they went ahead to circumvent the law by making sure that they register us without waiting for the rule of law to take place in 2017.
So you have been deregistered?
Yes, at the moment, now. Yeah. This is the letter, I got it yesterday. Not the day before yesterday, I got it yesterday.
Excuse me. You know what, Tanko and Yunusa and Esther Ozoma, let's be clear about something, again, for the benefit of our viewers. INEC did not amend the Constitution.
Yes.
Section 225A is the amendment to the Constitution.
Right.
And that came with a fourth set of amendments, which is referred to as a fourth alteration. Yes. So INEC did not set the threshold. That has to do with the lawmakers to say, score 25% XYZ. Follow me. Let's get it.
Let me intervene here, because it's a constitutional thing. So what INEC is just doing is playing into what the Constitution had set for them. So we can't blame them for what is in the Constitution. Good enough, the constitutional reform process is about to start. So it could be one of the arguments I want to put forward. But having said that, while what INEC said, it's legitimate by virtue of the Constitution. But you see, they must also go with equal force. There are other conditions. So in the assessment that they made, they should be able to tell us the full glean. So for APC, for PDP, and other political parties, did they meet up with all the criteria? So how come that they chose one or two criteria to use as a basis to deregister some political parties? There are other criteria, like the question of audit, which were not met by most of the political parties. So he who comes to equity, must come with clean hand. So, and I think that is where I have problems with INEC. It's not that what they did is not, constitutional or not. Now, for the political parties, because we also have to face reality, there are issues of costs. There are a whole lot of other issues why some political parties, for goodness sake, if you cannot win ordinary local government election, what are you doing? You know, in having a political party. For example, if you look at, let me take APM, for example, in Ogun State. APM came, and that's the process of most of the political parties, because we have to be realistic as Nigerians. We don't just want to have political parties for the fun of it. The question that INEC, that Esther is raising about ideology, it's not there. There's no political ideology. People wake up in the wake of the election, set up political party, and you think that as Nigerians we should go and face about 100 ballot paper in a 100 logos in the paper. So we need to also look at that. So the criteria must be strong as it is today. What INEC didn't do right is that INEC did not follow. We are supposed to have an assessment of all of them. And you should tell us why. Maybe because a particular political party didn't meet 3 of the criteria. That is why you are deregistering them. But if you are looking at all the criteria that is set by law, all of the political parties will be deregistered. So we need to clear air on that. In terms of what the constitutional provisions say, there are issues of audit, there are issues of convention, there are manifesto, and a whole lot of things. But INEC did not give us that full reason. So for that, I don't think that it's fair enough for the political parties.
I just wonder, I'm not an INEC advocate, but you permit, my familiarity with, election jurisprudence, to ask the question. In terms of the grounds for deregistration, are those grounds necessarily conjunctive? It is not that a party must fail to meet all before the party is deregistered.
The law says any.
Any. Yes. I believe so. So, I don't know. INEC, you are INEC man, so speak.
Our reaction will be based on nothing but the facts of the Constitution. Section 225 was the area we relied on. And it's clear. It talks about deregistration of political parties. It was not there before in the Constitution. It was in the Electoral Act. You remember between 2011 and 2013, when this thing first happened, the parties went to court and said categorically that the Electoral Act was inferior to the Constitution. And INEC didn't move that aspect from the Electoral Act to the Constitution. The National Assembly did. And now, one thing I want to say, if there's a provision in the Constitution about the registration of parties, and we do not obey that provision, we will not be flouting the law. You see, the only way we can sustain this democracy is to follow the law at all times, is to implement aspects of the law. The continuous existence of any political party is based on the conditions inserted in that 22A. If you don't fulfill those conditions, one day you expect to be registered. Every party that is registered, and let me say one thing, those 150, 100 that are waiting to be registered, that will be registered, as they are taking advantage of Section 222 and enjoying Section 222, they should be wary of 225A. That's what I want to say. They should be wary that in future, when an assessment like this happens again, they can be deregistered. The important thing is to keep to that aspect. Go for elections, win what you need to win. If you register political party and decide to keep that party in your handbag and stay at home and enjoy being chairman of party, one day, Section 225 may catch up with that person. And when that session catches up with the party, don't blame INEC. If they want that party, that aspect to be removed from the Constitution, they should go to the Constitutional Review Committee and seek a repeal of that aspect. INEC didn't amend the Constitution. No matter the opinions people are trying to put forward, no matter their emotive reactions, as long as 225A is the Constitution, INEC will obey it. INEC will implement it.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Ayo. Coming to you, Dr. Tanko. You were deregistered.
Yes.
And a lot of reasons have been given, like lack of transparency, fairness, and the way political parties, bring out their candidates. How are you going to bounce back?
No, our case is just like similar to that of PRP. It's 2 against 1. We went to court, we defeated them twice, we lost to them now 1, but we are still in court anyway, so we'll definitely bounce back. PRP was deregistered, and they also bounced back, and it was the same process through the law. The truth about it is that we try to meet all the constitutional provisions, except for this 225A, which INEC decided to follow the process till the end. They pick and choose in their own way. And we just hope and believe that INEC is not playing a script here. Because the noise out there for us within the political circle is that we are deliberately being deregistered because we are very vocal against certain things that were constitutionally done wrong and things that are happening in the politics. But there's no problem, it's okay. But as he said rightly, it is good to follow the constitution, but don't pick and choose. Follow the process to the latter so that we will know that there's fairness in it. As we are concerned now, there's no fairness in this particular process.
I don't know whether we can elaborate on this because it's a bit tight. INEC explained from the stories that were published that with regard to the conduct of local council elections and therefore the performance of the deregistered 74 political parties, that they relied on the area council elections, which they superintend. INEC has no control, for instance, over local government elections, elsewhere in the country. So that's one leg. I'm sure that's a matter that will come up again. I just wanted, Esther, you raised a very significant point, of course, along with the other guests. You talked first about associational rights, and then you talked about access to ballot. These are very critical issues in election jurisprudence. But you are saying that associational rights should not be confused with access to ballot. But instead, some persons will fear that your proposition for political party to pay some fee to continue to remain in existence might then become an avenue for IGR.
Well, the truth, the facts are, okay, on the altar of jurisprudence once again. You see, what is the idea? What's the spirit of democracy? We are shouting for us, we are shouting inclusivity, oh, bring women, bring women, bring women. So what is the whole philosophy of democracy? It's about popular participation. And so anything, let me tell you, if I were Tanko, I'll be hitting the course right away.
Well, Tanko is going to leave us now.
They have to formulate further questions.
Can you respond to that? No, he can't. Tanko, you can't respond now because we're taking off the mic from you because you are going to court, and I think that you have to be in the premises before 9. Thanks a lot for being around. So Esther, he's headed there, but I don't know whether it's a matter that you have raised that he's going there for. Tanko, we'll see you some other time.
Thank you so much for coming.
Okay.
You see, this INEC, this present INEC, has demonstrated, consistently their leaning towards obedience to, the laws, be it court orders, judgments. This INEC has consistently demonstrated that they are pro-democracy. Now, that is on one part. But if we look at, again, you were talking about jurisprudence. Let's look about, what's the philosophy? What's the idea of democracy? Why not an autocracy? Because people have to participate. And so we must set thresholds for participation. Where will you have groom people on any particular political ideology? What is it going to happen? It will happen in the clusters. Let people associate. It's also a fundamental right. You understand? I even think more fundamental than Section 225A. Let people, whatever they want to believe, associate. And the logic of 25% as a threshold, believe me, what's the issue? It should be questioned. Why? People win elections for less. So why 25? Why? What's the logic?
I'll address the question. Let me bring in Dr. Abiola Akiode. Look, she's talked about associational rights, but there's also access to ballot. You've talked about it here, and in the course of the election cycle, we've had you as a guest on Good Morning Nigeria. The sheer challenge of managing so many political parties on the ballot paper that looks like a 6-yard wrapper and so on and so forth, with all kinds of confusion that arises considering our the level of literacy amongst our population. How then do we deal with the fact that, yes, fine, you have 100 others who are willing to be registered as political parties. The management of those political parties themselves is an issue. Why just exist if you can't have access to the ballot? And why shouldn't your performance on the ballot also be one critical criterion for assessing, how well you continue to exist?
Well, the issue of freedom of association is very essential, very imperative in any democracy. And I think that the Nigerian Constitution is also very clear about that. But my argument is also that it's not absolute, and that's where there are conditionalities. You know, and why those issues were set as conditions and criteria that political party must meet. And that's why we have the 222 and we have the 225. The 222 allows everybody, and that's why they have that number of people, you know, a number of political parties that are about to be registered. I'm sure before 2023 we'll have more political parties. And that's also the reason why I'm also saying, maybe there's a need for us to look at the criteria. There's a problem which we need to face. Yes, our democracy is flourishing, but we must also, at every point in time, stand back and assess, you know, where we are. We have all these political parties. Some of them, immediately after the election, there's no office. And of course, we also look at what is the cost of the election. Because the number that we have also define, you know, if we have the number, and they're all ideologically correct, they are all rooted in their constituency, because it's also important. If you look at the last 2019 election, some political parties didn't even make 1,000. So there are conversations that we need to have, and if we want to move our electoral jurisprudence or our democracy forward, we need to look at some of this issue. But now, INEC, in that constitution, it talks about any. My point is that INEC must be ready to work according to the constitution, so that they are not being seen as being biased in the execution or in the implementation of the constitution. As it is today, it doesn't seem that INEC is wielding enough, you know, power on all the political parties. So it's looking like they are doing that for some political party and they are giving preference to others. So until when INEC gets to that level, that's when I would believe that they are doing the word any in the constitution. How come they chose the one that they want to pick? Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and some stakeholders were saying that it's like they're trying to clip the wings of younger politicians, because most of these parties are, you know, are owned by younger politicians, you know, and is that so? Can you clarify?
It's important to note one thing.
Yeah.
As at April 2013, there were 25 political parties. April 2013. Yeah. By the end of 2019, we had 92 political parties. That shows INEC did not stifle the coming up of political parties at all. If we move from 25 to 92, then there's no argument that we prevented parties from flourishing. We did not stop anyone from registering political parties. We did not. In fact, we tried to obey Section 222 as much as we can. Once you fulfill the conditions, we don't have any power to stop you. That is it. That's the truth. And of course, young people forming political parties, registering political parties, that's good for democracy. But what we are saying is that once you are looking at Section 222, don't stop there. Look at Section 225A, which INEC did not insert. We don't make the laws. And once these laws are there, if we do not obey them, it's a problem for us. There will be people that will be telling us too that you are not obeying the law. Why are you not obeying Section 225A? So what we are saying is, when people are criticizing us as INEC, look at the law seriously. Don't blame us for the law. Blame us for our inactions. If we don't act to implement the law, blame us. But if we act to implement the law, commend us.
But you are still going to register political parties coming into 2023
because the constitution says if people fulfill 222, they will register. You see, it's like saying
it's like a revolving door.
It's like saying that if you are a teacher, and you set exams this year, and some students fail, they're asking you, why are you allowing students to fail? Because most students will take the exams next year. You see, the mere fact that some people will be registered, if they come forward and they are qualified, does not mean that we should not look at those that are existing. Well, all the way, whether the parties that were there before and the ones that came up, we have to look at them and assess them on the same scale. Because the day you get registered as a political party, you are treated as an equal of all existing political parties.
You know, Mr. Aluko, thanks a lot. Esther and Dr. Abiola, there's a point that resonated during the course of the, shall we say, agitation for the expansion of the political space. Yes. To say that Nigeria cannot be a one-party state, it cannot also be a two-party state, nothing to the left, nothing to the right. let as many parties flourish. But it is also incumbent, the argument goes, on those political parties to ensure that they thrive once they come into existence. Every political party is being suggested doesn't have to have a candidate for the presidential elections. What some persons would ask was the challenge in you as a political party ensuring that you won't, say, a seat in the local council election or area council election in the FCT, or a seat in the state legislature. What was the challenge? Some of them are new, but I don't know. So, Esther.
You see, the logic of setting that bar, is flawed. How many people participate in the voting process? How many? No, how many? How many people actually participate? So if you
No. What arithmetic are you trying to work out?
Fantastic. It is on the altar. Yes.
About 35%.
Yes, no, and you're saying 25% is the margin.
You said 25% of that 35%. It's not 35% or 100. It's 25% of that 35.
Hang on.
Yes.
It is flawed still.
All right.
Still. Yes, it is flawed because another thing, people, you don't ask a human. There are people who get up in the morning, they don't go to work. Hello. They just sit down and wait. They don't go anywhere. But their right to life is fundamental. You do not ask people for whom the Constitution has said, associate as you want. And suddenly you are saying, if you are associating, you must. No, you have crossed the bar. This is on the altar of jurisprudence. You don't do that. Let me, whatever. You say, listen, in this our political party.
But rights are not absolute.
Yes.
Hang
Esther,
on now.
Yeah.
Hang on. Rights are not absolute. However, we must smell an infringement when we see one.
What is the fragrance? What is the fragrance you smell?
Dr. Abiola, because for me, there must be conditions.
Yeah.
And I also think that if we really want to flourish this democracy, political party must be grounded. People cannot just wake up or get annoyed because they are within a particular political party and go and form another. If you do, the onus is on you to make sure that political party flourish. And that's why I was bringing that APM example. In Ogun State, which is just what is happening in other places. A particular political party was running and then felt that it has been excluded and went to form another political party. But today, that political party, they have about 2 in the House of Assembly, or they're about 6 in the House of Assembly, then they have in the House of Rep. So the point is also that it's also a reflection on all of us to ask what manner of political parties do we have. We need to build, as we are building the democracy, it's also important for us to build the political parties. I am not agreeing with INEC entirely. I'm saying INEC should not in using any, you should also use any in a manner that is equitable, so that other political parties do not feel that they are being excluded. So and that's my own point to INEC.
Okay. If you skip 25% for PDP, skip 25% for say any political party, and then they are found
on the basis of audit.
Exactly.
No. Say that. No, audit. No. Let's get this clear. In terms of the provisions of the Constitution, INEC's oversight of the political parties relates to auditing of their accounts and monitoring of the parties and appropriate sanctions. Auditing can take quite a while, but if you like, the marginal note. I'm not a guest, so let's.
We have to take the tweets now. We have some tweets that came in. We have some tweets that came in. Ibrahim Modu ID tweets, it's a good step in the right direction taken by INEC so far. We need only 3 to 5 political parties on ballot paper to curb incidences of invalid votes. INEC should enforce stiffer regulations to deregister more political parties.
Joseph, Nigeria doesn't need large numbers of political parties. The more the political parties, the more the printing expenses. Anything between 3 and 5 viable parties are okay, according to him.
Yes, and one Google Ikwechuku Silvanos, deregistration of 74 political parties is a welcome development, though INEC is late to do this, but better late than never. Many others should be added. In fact, any party that does not meet INEC standard should go. Left alone, we should run a party system, a 3-party system. Kudos to INEC.
INEC cannot on its own just say go.
Yes,
you have to follow the law.
Exactly.
Amogbala Humbas tweets, INEC, the registering political parties is commendable. It should go further by registering a few more. our cost of electioneering is ridiculously humongous. If Nigeria is too big for a two-party system, at most, let's have them reduced to 3. Other parties should form alliance.
Exactly. And yes. Form alliance and have a stronger, base, so that you can be able to, yes. And signing Michael Omoko tweet, of what justification should we continue to have political parties that do not have structures and capacity to win a local government councillor? Though election in Nigeria is characterized with money, inducement and thuggery, but we cannot continue to feature these parties that are of no value.
All right. Emmanuel Bassi says, I'm in total support of the registration, but the parties should be reduced to 3 at the most. Dele Jack Solomon says, the registration is, if registration of political parties, if they don't serve the interests of Nigerians, it's not a bad idea. But what sense does it make to deregister 75 political parties and register another 100, and you think you are reducing the number of political parties? Please ask your guests. We have asked that question.
Yes. Mark Ayako, the registration of the so-called mushroom political parties was a very welcome development. One was really at loss of the number during last year's general election. Are we talking about the cost implication of INEC? Was it the general confusion on how to identify someone's candidate? Plus other incidental bottlenecks? This pragmatic action of INEC, through highly commendable, did not come in time. Those remaining 18 political parties should be further scrutinized for more reduction. It was an open secret some parties were formed for pure business. That's about all we can take. That's about all.
Law Afasi, this last one, producer and director, mine is, the deregistration of 74 political parties will throw many Nigerians using political activities to feign being busy into the labor market.
Exactly.
All right, so we'd like to thank our guests, Victor Ayo Aluko, Director, Voter Education, INEC. We'd like to thank you for being around. Dr. Abiola Akio, the Afolabi Chairperson, Transition and Monitoring Group. Thanks a lot for being with us. And Esther Uzoma, National Coordinator, Proactive Gender Initiative, Election Observer, and co-convener of the Situation Room.
That's triple honors.
There's no Situation Room yet.
No, there is behind the scenes. It's ongoing behind the scenes.
We have a situation in Nigeria
right now of 74 political parties.
We have elections.
All right, so that does it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. Double barrel, by the way. I would like to thank you for being around. Program returns tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Juma Yusuf. Kingsley will be here tomorrow. I'll be resting. Do have a wonderful day.
The concept of unity depicts itself as the unwavering oneness, togetherness, and undivided coherence of a group of people with respect to our differences. In a multicultural Nigeria, where progress is the goal of every sector, political group, and ethnic region, unity is paramount and a key factor to building the Nigeria of our dreams. Therefore, let us all disregard our differences and promote mutual understanding.